A brazen, premeditated attack in the heart of Midtown rocks the city and the nation. The CEO of UnitedHealthcare gunned down in a targeted hit. Today, Congressman Ritchie Torres goes on the record to discuss the impact on New York and if he himself is looking to run for governor. The Democratic primary for New York City mayor growing yet again. Former Assemblyman Michael Blake throwing his hat into the ring, why he thinks he's the one for the job.
We cannot be the council that says no to giving people places to live.
And the City Council green-lighting the City of Yes, a plan to create more than 80,000 new homes for New Yorkers. Major changes coming to city neighborhoods, and some argue not all are positive. Picks on Politics starts right now.
This is Picks on Politics.
And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I'm Dan Manarino. And the big story of the week, a cold-blooded shooting in the heart of Manhattan. The CEO of UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson, gunned down by a masked assassin. The story leaving the city shaken as police work to hunt down the killer. Questions are rising now over the safety in the city. Congressman Ritchie Torres, in expressing his shock, asked simply, quote, "What is happening in New York City?" End quote. Congressman Torres joining me now to go on the record. And Congressman is joining me. So great to have you here. Good to see you. Congressman, I want to get right to this and ask about your post, right? Following the shooting of the UnitedHealthcare CEO, what did you mean by asking what is happening in New York City?
You know, it seems to me that we have not fully recovered the sense of safety that we had before COVID. You know, for me, there's no greater function that government performs than public safety. It's important for people to be safe and feel safe. And New Yorkers increasingly feel unsafe in New York City. And an event like the assassination of a CEO in broad daylight in the heart of New York City undermines the sense of safety that New Yorkers should feel. And so that was the sentiment that I was looking to convey.
Yeah, it does seem like an isolated incident, right? The NYPD, the mayor saying this was a targeted attack that could have seemingly happened anywhere in the country, right? So should this be used as something to define the state of crime in New York City?
Well, I mean, any crime could, in theory, happen anywhere, but it happened in New York. And again, it's part of a broader outbreak of violent crime in New York City. I mean, since COVID, we've seen a 30% rise in crime, a 12% rise in the number of murders. And it's not only something that we see in the numbers, it's something that we feel on the ground. You know, New Yorkers feel like they're paying more and more for less and less. They feel like their costs are rising. They feel their public safety, their quality of life, their affordability is declining.
Yeah.
We ignore those anxieties at our own peril.
So let's talk about that, right? We're talking about crime. You have become more vocal as of late about these repeat offenders, right? Citing examples. One of them was a woman assaulted at a Dunkin' Donuts recently. You said that this is the latest example of criminal justice system that releases criminals and re-victimizes the victims of the crimes here. So do you think that when you look at all of that, that laws need to change on local and federal level?
There needs to be changes at every level. And, you know, consider the case of Ramon Rivera, you know, who went on a murderous rampage, stabbing 3 New Yorkers to death in broad daylight. You know, during his incarceration, Ramon Rivera assaulted a corrections officer. And not only did the city and state fail to punish him for assaulting a corrections officer, the city chose to release him early for, quote, good behavior. Only in a broken system could assaulting a corrections officer be considered good behavior. And if he were never released early, if he had been held accountable for assaulting a corrections officer, then the 3 New Yorkers he stabbed to death would be alive today.
Okay, so let me just zero in on that for a second, right? So what needs to change then on both the local and federal level? Are you talking about the bail reform laws that took place in Albany? Can you zero in on something?
So at the local level, there needs to be a policy of prohibiting early release for those who commit violent crimes during their period of incarceration. Ramon Rivera should have never been released early. There should be a policy against it. At the state level, the state needs to grant the mayor the authority to involuntarily remove dangerous people from subways and streets and put them in a healthcare setting where they belong. And then at the federal level, we have to end a policy known as the IMD exclusion, which is restricting federal funding for inpatient care. We have to recognize that there are New Yorkers in our city whose mental illness is so profound that it requires institutional care, and we need to unlock federal funding for institutional care. There's nothing compassionate, there's nothing progressive about allowing those with serious mental illness to languish on our streets and in our subways and in our jails and in our prisons.
Yeah, the mayor has said he wants to do exactly what you're talking about and needs the law to change to do that with removing involuntary people, as does his new police commissioner, Jessica Tisch. Curious on your thoughts of that pick.
When I was in the city council, I had interactions with Commissioner Tisch when she was the deputy commissioner for IT, and I found her to be just one of the most talented, pragmatic public servants that I've ever encountered in New York City government. So I have full confidence in Commissioner Tisch, and I feel like she's going to be a disruptor of the status quo, which is needed not only in the NYPD, but across city government.
Yeah, and you've also been critical of the state government as well. So I want to pivot right now to you and zeroing on Governor Hochul. In recent weeks, you've been critical of her. You've called on the government now to investigate claims that Governor Hochul's office rigged a bid to oversee New York's $9 billion home care Medicaid program. So curious as to why you think an investigation of a sitting governor who's a Democrat of your own party is the right move at this point in time.
Well, it's not about party politics. It's about good government. There is something rotten in the state of New York under the failed leadership of Governor Kathy Hochul. Just ask Carlos Martinez, who's the CEO of Bridges, whose sworn affidavit accuses the Hochul administration of putting its thumb on the scale to favor a preferred contractor.
So what do you think she did? Did she get a payoff for here? Is that what you're alleging?
Well, Carlos Martinez is not alleging a payoff. He's alleging that the Hochul administration knew that it was going to select PPL for a $9 billion contract long before launching a competitive bidding process. And not only is the governor accused of pre-selecting and privileging a single preferred contractor, but the governor exempted the award of the contract from review by the New York State Comptroller.
Okay.
Like blocking the comptroller from reviewing a $9 billion contract, as the Hochul administration has done, is evidence of a broken system.
So a lot of
it requires an independent investigation from the Medicaid IG.
Yeah, a lot of saying right now that you're calling for this investigation, you're being critical of the governor because that you yourself want to run for governor and challenge Hochul. Is that something that you are seriously considering, a potential challenge against Governor Hochul?
I want to be clear, I did not submit the sworn affidavit. Right, it was Carlos Martinez.
I understand.
Who submitted the sworn affidavit, and I'm simply responding to his sworn affidavit. To your question, look, I've declared that I'm running for re-election as a member of Congress, but I do reserve the right to change my mind. I will make a final decision as to the gubernatorial run in mid-2025, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, why wait? Why wait till 2025? If you're so critical of it now, you're not happy with the status quo, you're super critical of things happening on the city and state level, why not just say you want to do it now?
Well, I have no confidence in the leadership of Kathy Hochul. We need a new Democratic nominee. Whether I'm going to be the Democratic nominee remains to be seen. But one thing I do know for sure is that Kathy Hochul is setting up the Democratic Party to fail in November of 2026, and we need a new Democratic nominee.
Politico had an article looking at some of your past positions, right? One being defund the police. I'm sure you saw the article, which one said that you were in favor of, then backed away from it, to which the governor's team now has already come out saying, quote, "It is time for Ritchie Torres to take his own advice and engage in some serious self-reflection." As he once said, any elected official who advocated for defunding the police should not be taken seriously. It sounds like you're both already campaigning against each other. Let me give you a chance to respond to what the governor said there.
The governor has no moral authority to lecture anyone on flip-flopping. In the span of 5 months, she was for congestion pricing before she was against it, before she was for it. In the span of 5 months. She is the foremost flip-flopper in the history of New York politics. She is such an embarrassment that she's drawn even the criticism of Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. She was for the NRA before she was against it. And even though New Yorkers give Kathy Hochul a failing grade, the NRA once gave her an A.
Doors open possibly for a run for governor. We're out of time here. Are you a yes or a maybe or a no on a run for mayor?
Highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely there. Congressman Ritchie Torres, a lot of ground to cover here. You covered it all. Appreciate you. You're welcome back anytime, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And still to come, everybody, the New York City Council signing off on the City of Yes, how this will significantly increase housing in the city over the next several years, and why not everybody is excited about it. Plus, another Democrat ready to primary Mayor Eric Adams, former Assemblyman Michael Blake, joining me next to discuss how he will stand out in this crowded field with his vision for New York. Picks on Politics back in just 2 minutes.